Thank you for joining our final AIOps Power Hour. Today, we'll be talking about how you can enhance your service visibility by leveraging observability data and AIOps. And you can see our two speakers today, Will and Hal. I was about to say Will and Hal. Will and Brandon are coming up on camera because they'll be doing all the actual important presentation stuff today. But in terms of everything that we have coming up, I just want to do some housekeeping before we get started, which includes a safe harbor notice for any forward statements that we may make throughout the presentation in Q&A or in chat or anything like that. As well as especially because I'll be doing a short roadmap segment at the very end of today's presentation as well, which will not be recorded. So if you want to learn about some things that we plan on releasing, you got to stay till the end. Sorry. And if you're interested in joining any future webinars on Live on ServiceNow, which is how we're presenting and coming to you today, feel free to scan this QR code or go into ServiceNow community to find all the upcoming events on Live on ServiceNow. In terms of housekeeping, like I said, we've saved time at the end for Q&A, but also if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A module of Zoom. We have many other ITOM experts on the call with us today who are ready to answer your questions. And this presentation will also be recorded, except for the roadmap part, and shared on community about a week from now. So if you're already signed up for this webinar today, which you are because you're listening to this, you'll be able to get an email from Zoom in about a week with the link to the recording. And then at the end, there'll also be a feedback survey. So thank you in advance for any feedback that you may have. We're coming up very close to the actual presentation part, but got to finish this up. So we want to help you, us as ServiceNow, get to value faster with our amazing solution. And we have some various services to help you with that, such as ServiceNow Impact, training and certification, as well as expert services. So if you want to learn more about any of these various services, you can easily search this up on community or on any of these ServiceNow websites, and also the QR codes are right here. So, like I said, there were several other power hours that happened in the past month. And in the case where you missed any of them, such as supercharge your event management with AI or how to achieve quick time to value for AIOps with RapDev, I will link them in the chat shortly where you can access links to them when they are posted, as well as past power hours that have happened in February of this year, as well as late last year. But to hand it off, the agenda today will be the following. We'll talk about empowering distributed teams in AIOps with SRM, how to increase service visibility with observability data, monitoring endpoints with synthetic monitoring, a high-level roadmap, and then some live Q&A for any questions that we didn't get to throughout the call. And now I'll hand it over to Will and Brandon.
Great. Just coming off mute here. I guess we'll just do a real brief introductions. My name is Brandon Strickland. Will and I'll let Will do his next. We're on the same team. So the team is referred to as the ITOM Center of Excellence. And been with the company 11 years. And it's just great to run through with everybody. Will, do you want to add anything before we get started?
Just to say hi, Will Hallam. I'm a teammate of Brandon's. Been at ServiceNow for 4 years. Before that, I spent a lot of time as a ServiceNow customer. So I got to kind of use the solutions, and now I get to kind of see behind the scenes and help other folks use the solutions to make their lives better. So great to talk to all of you today.
Just a bit of housekeeping. Victoria, I'm happy for you to drive. I don't need to unless you want me to take over the PowerPoint so you can do administrative tasks easier. It's up to you.
Oh yeah, you can go ahead and take it over.
Okay. All right, great. Just give me 1 second here. I'll start on the same slide that we're on, and then I'll share. Should be this one, right? Yes. Okay, excellent. Bear with me while I just move some things around, folks. Okay. All right. So, what we're going to talk about today is three things: reliability management. We're going to talk about observability, and we're going to talk about synthetic transaction monitoring. Sorry, service observability. I'm going to combine the two last ones together, but we are going to split up the service reliability management and the service observability between two different demos. So I'm probably going to do the bulk of the talking today, but Will has carte blanche to add context, to interrupt me, and to tell me I'm wrong, as always. And he's going to be running through the actual hands-on keyboard demos. Okay, so you guys can see the tools and the sort of the outcomes in action. All right. So let's get started. So we've always had this concept of sort of a monolithic event management approach, and that's been fine throughout the years. As of it makes me feel old, but I guess as of probably even a decade ago, maybe a little less, we started to see a paradigm change through the likes of large companies that wanted to move really quickly, like Google, who termed the or who started the term site reliability engineer, right? We've got specific teams of people that are both, in some cases, developing, but also managing, deploying, and monitoring one particular service that they're responsible for, or maybe several microservices, but they're not one person looking at the totality of all services at a company like a centralized team would do. So mode one is that sort of that traditional centralized team, and then mode two is the newer approach. And obviously, what we're looking to do with service reliability management is we want to empower both teams because it's few and far between where it's either one or the other. You're very likely to get a mix of both of them within most enterprise landscapes today. You can continue forward, Victoria.
You have it.
Oh, it is me. Sorry, I didn't say I was going to take over. Sorry. So I have control. Um, so and in the workings of both of those, you have different approaches, right? There's different responsibilities, different processes, different expectations, right? So we've got the traditional side, very centralized. It's the specific teams that are handling it. A lot of manual methods. And then we have the sort of the service environment. Everything is kind of about speed and agility, whatever gives them the power to sort of self-serve to keep the service up and running as best as possible. So how do we bridge the gap between the two of these? And the spoiler alert, the answer is service reliability management and all the tools that we bring into, you guessed it, the service operations workspace to be able to empower both the monolithic, which is not a derogatory term, and the SRE sort of based teams that are keeping an eye on one thing specifically, but have a lot more responsibility. All right, first poll question of the day. And the question is, how are your support teams organized? And while this is being answered, I am just going to change the way that my share is sorted. Bear with me 1 second here.
And if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A, please.
Yeah, I see somebody's got their hand raised, but I don't know. In the webinar format, I don't think there's a way for them to speak up other than inquire via the Q&A panel. Which, if you're having trouble finding the Q&A section, sometimes Zoom will hide that under the little ellipses section entitled More. So if anybody's having trouble finding that's a little Easter egg that Zoom threw in there a little while ago. Well, looks like far and away the folks on today's session are in the middle of a hybrid kind of a model. So I guess that's good news because we have things that will help you.
Yeah. Yeah, the fully centralized is actually a little lower than I was expecting, which
Yeah.
I suppose it depends on the industry and the teams and the technology for sure. All right, excellent. All right, so we're going to show you, and none of those answers are right. None of those answers are wrong. They're just your reality, right? And we're going to show you how our tool is going to be able to help everybody on the call today, right? That's where we're really going to drive home. It doesn't matter. It's great to see the differences, but we're going to be able to help each of these scenarios no matter what. Okay, so moving on. All right. So effectively, we're going to, as I mentioned before, we're going to use that service operations workspace to be able to improve the reliability of those digital services with SRE, as this says. We're going to look at all the nuts and bolts and how we do that in just a second. So let's get on to it. So. Are these out of order? Hold on one second. No, they are not. My apologies. The title of this slide took me by surprise. So I'm staring at Will here. One second. Oh,
I'm flattered.
yeah, well, I just got to move you out of the way. I'm happy to have you on my screen. Okay. Now I can see my slide. So as we can see here, this is really split up into a couple different sectors, right? So what we need to do first is we need to appropriately set up and manage our team. Okay. This is done through a great self-service sort of mechanism. You're going to see a couple screenshots here coming up that are going to explain this in a little deeper of a way, even before we kick it off to Will to get hands-on keyboard and walk you guys through it in an instance. But once we get our team sorted, then our teams are specifically worried about specific services in a lot of cases. On the SRE side, you're not looking at the entirety of the enterprise landscape. You've got your things you're responsible for. So we want to register those services. After that, we need to know how we're going to, deal with what's going on in that landscape if things aren't absolutely perfect, right? So, incident response, how are we dealing with escalations and things of that nature, any sort of automations, and then once we've gone through all of those things, it's just a matter of monitoring the health. Watching the different metrics that are coming in as far as like and we're going to get into it in a second, SLI, SLO, error budgets and things of that nature, and being able to look at your service and understand how it is sort of holistically from the service perspective. And obviously, we're doing all this through the service operations workspace on our powerful platform of record and automation. All right. So just a couple things to cover here. So we've got on-call significant on-call enhancements. Okay, within the new module. So we've always had a really great on-call engine. I think that through the Teams aspect and through SRM, we are able to, or we have created a really nice UI to be able to go in and to be able to interact with that engine, to be able to set up the on-call rotation, which obviously is going to help get things to the right person and not possibly wake up the wrong person, to solve the right issue, to be able to reduce all the things that you're measuring on. I'll just say MTTX because we want to lower anything that's mean time to you guys, you folks having a smooth operating services. Okay, so we're going to look at those SLOs and SLIs, error budgets, in just a second here in the next couple screens. Obviously, we don't want to just create an incident off of everything and that's pretty standard event management practice as well. But specifically for the teams that are SRE based, obviously we're going to want to be intelligent and thoughtful about when and how we escalate some of these things that are coming into our system, and to whom it gets assigned to, because there's real specific people looking at these services. And obviously, we've got a bunch of self-service sort of guided approaches you're going to see here in just a minute. Okay. All right, so now we're getting into some of the screenshots. This is just going to kind of get you prepped for what you're going to see Will walk you through. Okay. In some of these cases, he might not hit on all these, but it's going to give you a good understanding of what he's showing you. So first things first, when we marry these two systems together, in most cases, the folks that are managing are that monolithic group, not always, but in most cases. So we're going to allow the management group that is sort of overarchingly managing event management and sort of those concepts to sort of set some governance principles for the self-service SRE aspect, team-based aspect of the tool. Okay. So, do we need approvals? Are we going to allow fully self-service sort of just let them go and then fully empower them, or do we need some checks and balances? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's really specifically where you may find yourself as a company, and as sort of how you handle your processes, whether it's more on the governance side or more of the sort of the autonomous side. Okay. So, or I suppose that should, maybe autonomous isn't the right word, but the self-service side rather. All right, so we've got the governance side of the house, and then we've got an admin center that is going to allow you to go through and set up both your teams, as well as those teams to set up their services that they are going to manage. And as you can see from some of the screenshots, while they're a little small, it'll be more clear when Will walks through his piece. It's very much guided, different pages taking you through each thing at a time, so that you can get your team set up, get your team members in the team, get your services registered, and then obviously onboard the tools that are going to be needed to be able to effectively manage those services. All right, so here we have just sort of some of the setup screens, some of the service implementation screenshot here going on, and this is more so a continuation of the self-service, right? You can look at your team details, your team members, you can do the assigned services. Again, all this stuff is very much wizard based, and a lot of hand holding and walking through to make sure you don't miss any pieces in the setup process, so that everything is plugged in appropriately. And this is also where we're going to go through and we're going to look at those, not the old ServiceNow APM terminology. This is our standard sort of event management ecosystem application performance monitoring tool integrations, so that we can get those, I'll just say, signals coming in, so that we can appropriately measure, what is going to affect an SLO, what's going to impact our error budget, and things of that nature, so that we're appropriately measuring the service health holistically again. All right, so here's where we're going through and we're defining our SLOs, SLIs, and error budgets. Again, I'm not going to belabor this too much. Just really driving home the fact that we can go through and set up these definitions so that it matches what the business feels could impact those. I'll just refer to them as metrics. So that you're getting the appropriate measurement, right? What things, as they're coming in, those signals, are we interpreting as running like a well-oiled machine, and what signals would we interpret as, well, okay, this is going to affect that SLO, that SLI, or that error budget, and how do we react to those? Right. So in doing that, obviously, as always, unless you're using the agent for everything, right? But in this case, using APM tools, obviously, we're going to need integrations. Again, within the service operations workspace, we're not needing to go out and about into the wild. We can set up integrations for, and I don't say this lightly, for really any tool. We've got built out integrations for quite a few tools. Um, but we can set up integrations for any tool, even if it's not supported. Though I like to tout the fact that most of the APM tools out there that are best of breed and have a large market share, we've got really simple wizard built-in integrations ready to rock and roll through the integration launchpad, rather. Sorry, loss of words there. All right, so just a little bit on the on-call schedule. I talked about the fact that we have really revamped sort of the user experience here to be able to go through and just easily manipulate the sort of the on-call schedule in a UI sort of based way. Still using again the same engine, but the SRM and the use of this tool is what's going to give you that enhanced user experience to be able to easily and quickly change the sort of the on-call rotation in general and who to reach out to and when. In addition to that, obviously, we've got escalation triggers and policies. So that's just really handling what do we do or who do we do it against? Are we sending out, excuse me, push notifications to folks using the mobile functionality? Spoiler alert, we'll get there in just a minute. Are we creating an incident? Who are we assigning it to? Are we reaching out? Are we using the on-call, obviously, mechanism to reach out to the right person with those push notifications? Because I'll go a little deeper when we get there, but wouldn't we love to sort of hang up all those archaic and paper sort of either pager based or conference call bridge type stuff. We can sort of do all that with the technologies we have now with the help of the mobile agent and some other things. So a lot of cost savings there, a lot of streamlining of technologies and simplification of just of setup. All right. So, and we're going to see a lot deeper sort of the service record view in a little bit, both in screenshot, but also in application. But I just wanted to kind of bring this full circle once everything is dialed in. Once you go to the record, you at a glance, and we're actually going to see a bunch more metrics when we get to the reliability piece and some of the the observability pieces. We're gonna see how that's going to even add more context to some of this, right? Because they all work together really cohesively. Okay. So on the bottom there, it's just an at a glance of a bunch of services, and the top one is just one specific service. But you can see some of those metrics, right? Of those the things that we're setting up initially and measuring from the signals coming in. We're seeing those on this screen in one of the sort of holistic views here. And then obviously a lot of people are in charge of multiple services, or it could be because you're set up in a microservice sort of way. So you want to know that the overarching thing that you're delivering to your end users is working. You also might want to know that a bunch of the subservices or underpinning services that are microservices are also all running at the best that they can. All right. And just a quick call out. Obviously, we see all those metrics related to all those in the lower screenshot there, right? So we see the error budget remaining, open alerts, open incidents, open changes, all things at a glance, so that someone who is managing these it has sort of all of the data that we need as folks keeping things running to triangulate, right? So it all goes into understanding where to go should there be an issue that creeps up or who to reach out to. All right, so this is just a real quick screenshot of defining an automation, right? We've got triggers for defining the automation, and then we have responses to that trigger of defining the automation. And This could be enrichment. This could be a bunch of different things. This could be even correlation rules for team-based stuff. It could be response type um, actions, opening incidents, etc. So all these things. The teams, right, in an SRE perspective, all get the ability to go through and set up all everything that's going to allow them to be self-reliant and to operate as a specific team. But we also allow sort of the management piece on the back end. So if there was a definition that was set up by the overarching event management team. We do allow the sort of the overruling of a definition from a team. So obviously, we still want to work together as teams process wise, but the team is still completely able to self-serve in setting up their individual rules as long as there's nothing that's going to be in sort of what's the proper word for that would clash, so to speak. Okay, the monolithic overarching event management rule would take precedence at that point if that were to occur. All right. So again, just sort of bringing everything together in the service operations workspace. We have the ability through the Teams mechanism to allow you a very pleasant experience within the Express list. We can, and it's really table stakes, right, at this point. But you're not going to see all the alerts that aren't related to the services that you care about. We can easily go through, set up the different filters for that specific team, and have only things that are relevant to folks in the above screenshot, which is the Express list, just in case anyone is new to this UI or hasn't adopted it yet. We would hope most have, but there are still some folks doing that move now or planning to do that move. And then on the bottom, it's just really working a specific issue with all of the sort of enhancements of the UI of the service operations workspace, being able to have inset tabs, have access to all the information on the right pane, the whether it's using the assistant or whatever it may be, doing the quick actions and things of that nature. All right, last but not least, before we move into a live demonstration of some of those things that we've just reviewed, I want to make sure we give the mobile agent its just due. It's really specific and purpose built to be able to be used with the teams. It's also a great cost reduction strategy to get away from some of the pay per sort of paging systems. We've had a lot of great success stories when it comes to switching over to the mobile agent with SRM to be able to empower teams to fully use this for all sort of on-call alerting and communication strategies so that those older and in some cases very expensive tools can be sunset and we can sort of go in all in ServiceNow perspective.
So one kind of interesting thing about the mobile agent that I discovered firsthand was it's delivered via, kind of a bifurcated approach. So you've got an enhancement to the existing Now Agent mobile app, which originally was used for the ITSM side. So now that's been augmented to include support for these ITOM use cases. And then you've got a plugin, ITOM mobile agent plugin, that has to be on your platform in order for the two to kind of talk together and to get the ITOM enhancements to that Now mobile application.
Thank you for that, Will. I appreciate that. All right. I think we've got a couple poll questions. Actually, before, I think, unless Victoria, you overrule me, Will, you're welcome to as well. We have a poll question that could be relevant before Will gets into his demo. Would we like to do that poll question first, Victoria?
Sure.
Go for it.
Oh, service operations workspace, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, good call to do this before because as Brandon kind of mentioned, all this new functionality is delivered by virtue of the kind of the palette of the service ops workspace. It's been out for a couple years now. It kind of was a superset of the old agent workspace, which is really more focused on kind of front of house ITSM use cases, whereas service ops workspace covers the intersection of ITSM and ITOM, front of house and back of house. So if it's not something that you're looking at in kind of in earnest, we encourage you to definitely do that. There's actually some resources available to help adoption. So if you're interested in that, you should reach out to your account team and they can generally bring some resources to bear to help you in that migration because it does represent, a cultural shift if you're used to, or your, fulfillers are used to working in list views or customized forms or some other user experience.
I'm actually I'm it's interesting metrics coming in here. Great to see the six folks. Assuming everyone has participated in the poll. I can't do that math that quickly to see who's answered and the total number of people in here. But great for ITSM and ITOM. This is going to be old hat for you guys. So as Will's walking through stuff, this is going to all look super familiar. No, but it's on the roadmap is awesome to hear. I think Will walking through some of this is going to give you a nice preview and you're going to get to know it pretty well. You've probably seen it in a bunch of slides and other presentations as well, but this will definitely drive that home. Using a different product, totally understand that. I'm a little curious in the no and no plans. Certainly if you're going to adopt service reliability management, which I'd mistaken for observability earlier, which is why I was confused on that one slide, but that's my apology. Not enough coffee, I guess. But that's interesting to me. I don't know that I would encourage adopting the solution we're presenting today without using the service operations workspace. I don't think it's possible, actually. But appreciate the honesty, and it's good to know where our people, so to speak, are in sort of in their journey within service operations workspace, ITSM, ITOM, and just the platform in general. All right. I think minus a couple stragglers, this is great to look at. It's really good feedback, and I think Will, you are welcome to. I will stop my share, but I will hand the show over to you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So our first hands-on demo will just be an overview of the SRM experience. I'll start with a quick overview of that initial kind of deputization process and onboarding that occurs. So this view that I'm sharing is it's going to be kind of where the platform team decides to onboard and deputize those federated teams so that they can kind of have more control over their own destiny. So the first step to doing that is the platform admin can deputize people on the platform to actually have full administrative rights within service reliability management. And so once they have that role, that allows folks to do things like onboard teams and services, basically oversee that entire process, as well as approve self-service requests that additional services are created in the CMDB or existing CMDB services are brought into the fold of SRM. And so then from there, we do give the kind of the platform level admins the ability to activate or onboard existing teams and services. If I can get my browser to respond. There we go. So this stage here allows those platform admins to pull in existing teams and services and make them available via service reliability management. And my browser is thinking really hard still. I'm going to turn off my video actually, because I've noticed that Zoom seems to take a lot of resources if I'm sharing video and trying to, let's see. Okay, so like I said, this kind of allows that entry point for platform admins, again, to kind of bootstrap the existing teams and services that exist. And then from there, we go into the governance and autonomy, which is where the platform admin can control how additional services, um, teams, and error budgets are entered into the system. And that takes the form, it just sits on top of core platform capabilities using existing automation flows to basically walk requests for new services and teams through the approval process as is determined by the customer's organization. Come on, browser, you can do it. So in this case, I basically have it set up so a team can request a new service to be created or pulled in from the CMDB into SRM, but that's going to be requiring approvals from the SRM team approvers assignment group. And so in this fashion, you've got complete kind of control. You've got guardrails around the onboarding process and the change process, but you're enabling these federated teams to kind of control their own destiny. And so once all that's set up, now I'll kind of pivot into what the experience is for a user of the SRM capability. And so what I'll do is I'll start on the Teams tab. And so the Teams tab is going to give the user a list of all the teams to which they belong. And then I've just clicked into the Division 1 SRE team tab so that I can see the details behind that team. We get some kind of basic metrics around resolved incidents, open incidents. And then if we go to the services managed tab, we'll then see the services that have been onboarded for that team to manage. And if I pick one of those services as an example, it provides an overview, which that's just a brief kind of sneak peek at what service observability brings to the table, as well as some contextual information about recent changes, and then where we sit with regard to the service level objectives, which looks like this service is not in great shape, folks, which makes for great demos. And then some widgets with active alerts and current open incidents. And so from there, we can see the integrations that are configured for this service. And this is one of those kind of deputizations that previously required platform level admin resources to establish. So before the advent of SRM, if a team managed a service or a set of services and they wanted to integrate with a tool or tool sets that they're using to monitor those services, they would generally have to put in a request to the platform team, work hand in glove with them to set it up. Whereas with SRM, that federated team can now do that completely on their own. And so I've got a couple integrations already configured, and I can click into those and kind of see the current state of that integration. And this essentially is an identical experience to what the platform team has when they work with the integrations launchpad experience within Service Operations Workspace. So I can see that my integration is active, and I can see a sample of related events, so I can verify that I'm actually getting events in from these tools. And so what this does is it just puts that team's destiny completely in their hands. In addition, when you configure integration at the service level, you can kind of automatically decorate those events that are coming in with information such as hey, here's the app name, or hey, here's the team that this needs to get assigned to, without having to kind of distill down out of the full, you know, fire hose level bandwidth of events that are coming into the platform. It gives you the ability to immediately, kind of on inception, just focus those events into that particular monitored service. And so then if I move on into the alert automation experience, this is where those same federated teams can define their own alert automations. And so the way that looks, now this is showing me the here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll impersonate a less privileged user. Kind of show the true federated experience. Okay, so here's Fran. Fran is a member of this SRE team that we were just looking at. So now if I look at my integrations, let's see, and go to alert automation, I can see that this team has set up a specific enrichment automation just for them. And so this is an enrichment automation that will take anything coming in from the New Relic tool that's assigned to this Division 1 SRE team. And then it'll take some data from the payload and place it into the node field for the alert output. So I'm basically kind of harkens back to what I mentioned about when you set up the integration. The same thing applies. You can kind of make a lot of assumptions when it's just a single team that's setting this up, as opposed to when your platform team, you have to deal with every possible scenario when you're defining these automations. Okay, and so I'll kind of conclude the SRM segment by switching my share over to my phone, just to give you a flavor for the mobile experience. Okay. Okay, so the mobile experience, as Brandon mentioned, one of the advantages is with the mobile app on your fulfiller's devices, you can get those push notifications, which you can see here. These are all the push notifications that I've gotten from my monitored service on my mobile app. And so if my phone was locked, this would come up just like a notification that you would get if you were receiving a text message, but without kind of the messy integration of like an SMS telephony service. And it gives you kind of similar, if you've seen this used for ITSM use cases, it's very similar. The main thing is it includes visibility into alerts up here at the top, which were not really kind of on the radar when this was an ITSM only mobile app. And so again, it just lets your responders immediately find out when something critical is going on, and then they can go through and do kind of straightforward things. Like down at the bottom, you'll see there's a reassign button, or if they've already fixed the alert, they can close the alert and get on with their life. So that's the SRM experience.
So we've looked at SRM, Service Reliability Management. And now we're going to look at Service Observability Management. Okay. There, when it comes to observability, there tends to be sometimes not. There tends to be more questions than there are answers, right? You know, we've got all sorts of tools out there, and now we're throwing out new terms that are in the industry, and what does that mean for us? So we're going to kick off this specific piece of the service observability, not to be confused with reliability, with a poll. And just to preface this poll as Victoria gets it put up, I will just say that they're I think at the very core of folks that have really evangelized observability. Some folks are there'll be a never-ending disagreement with some minutia here. This is generally for our purposes today to get folks thinking in the right way. Interesting poll answers coming in. So quite a few people confident that they know the differences between observability, APM, and again, that's application performance monitoring, and event management. There's a couple no's. Appreciate the honesty. That's good. Some folks might just not be jumping headfirst into the observability front yet, so that's to be expected. And the it's complicated, I thought was an interesting way to give a last option there because frankly, that might be the closest answer. It might be it's complicated. It might be the most closest to reality. We'll just give these another second and then we'll jump into a slide. Actually, while they continue to come in, I'll jump into the slide, not to let me change anyone's answers if they haven't answered yet and we get into the slide, but for time's sake. All right, so this is generalized and this is for our purposes just to get folks sort of just to get the juices flowing, so to speak, and get the brain in the right sort of space. So and you'll see the 011Y. This has to do with the amount of words, or excuse me, the amount of characters in the word observability. You can Google it. It'll explain to you why 011Y is observability. But I wanted to include that as well, since some folks might be new to observability. Versus application performance monitoring versus just sort of event management, right? So observability is pretty broad, and it's using different or additional sort of signals, I'll say, right? So we look at observability, we kind of think like logs, metrics, and traces. Traces is the real big piece here, whether that's sort of an infrastructure agent that you've deployed, OpenTelemetry agent, Datadog agent, Dynatrace agent, things of that nature. So oftentimes these can be brought in an agent and just dropped in to monitor things going on some sort of server or something related resource wise. And then they also have SDK. So your folks that are developing, and maybe it's you if you're SRE team that are developing the product, actually use sort of like an SDK to be able to plug the metrics that we want directly into the application sort of source code, so to speak, right? But what we want as an outcome is we want to be able to go deeper than some of the other tools could do before. And that could mean, I have latency that is unacceptable to my end users, but instead of just kind of starting to look around and look at different metrics to understand where it might be, I should using all those three logs, metrics, and traces, I should be able to look at specific transactions and to step them back to find the piece that is taking the longest amount of time to really dive into the why and how. Okay. So that's what I think differentiates observability versus the others. But even on our team, when we discuss these things, some folks agree on, and there's a division on some of the other pieces. So there's less and less hard and fast, but more so just some sort of generalities to get your head again thinking in the right way. So APM was really big on things like response time, right? Error rates and throughput and things of that nature, right? Application performance monitoring. A lot of those would take into account events as well and metrics and other things like that. But they're really looking at how that service, how that application is responding to end users. So a little bit of overlap, but observability goes above and beyond. And then event management, tried and true. When I talk to customers these days, I like to say it's sort of our, it's the backup parachute, so to speak. We're looking really specifically at occurrences within a system. A lot of times, once they have occurred, the problem is already existing and impacting us. So, the APM, the observability kind of get us in fixing things prior to hopefully them really becoming an issue. Certainly logs and things of that nature, but it's still relevant information to help us keep an eye on our service as a whole. So we just really wanted to level set before we got into the real big sort of observability key points, so no one was guessing the whole way through here. All right. So on to sort of a little story to kind of set the stage here for our observability product. So Aisha is our NOC operator. She's in the service operations workspace. She's rocking and rolling, watching alerts and incidents come in and try to keep the lights on, everything running smoothly, keep the stakeholders happy, things of that nature. So we've got all of our supporting characters here, right? Cloud infra, platform owner, network, and app dev, right? And something happens, so let's say an event management alert comes in, or possibly even a call-in incident from a call-in saying, hey, something's not working. Doesn't matter how. But the point is, Aisha's got an issue that she is trying to troubleshoot. She's reaching out to everyone and saying, hey, what's going on? Just trying to get an idea of, how I can get in and triage this and get things up and running smoothly again. And everyone within their specific subset of tools is seeing all green. There's no, hey, this is good, we're good. Sort of playing a little blame game in between each of in each of the teams. Surprised there's not a database person getting thrown under the bus here, but it would really benefit Aisha to see all of these signals coming in, save time, but also allow her to come to her own conclusions as an expert in triage. So how do we do that? We do that through the service reliability. Oh, there we go again. The service observability tool sets, and allowing us to be able to integrate with those tools, those best of breed tools, to be able to bring all those signals in and allow them to, again, in the service operations workspace, to be, and in a team aspect, if we would like, bring everything together, to be able to see those signals coming in, to be able to self-serve, so Aisha can make those decisions on her own behalf. Okay. All right, so we're going to pause for before we get into all the real specific cases and to see Aisha's story come to an end, a good end. We're gonna throw up a poll question here to split things up. We would love to know what observability or APM tool, and there's a little bit of overlap there depending on which levels of these tools you're using and which capabilities you have rolled out. So some of you could argue this is or isn't an observability or an APM tool, but we've included them to make sure we're as inclusive as possible.
A good end, right? To Aisha's story. She fixes the issue.
She does. No
100%.
spoilers. We've got a really good mix. I don't know. I actually don't even know if Zoom allows you to do multiple choice. I'm sure a lot of you folks probably have.
Oh, it is multiple choice.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's a
Okay.
select all that apply.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's a
Awesome.
long list.
Yeah.
So if anyone hasn't scrolled down, there's more.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is an important poll because this is actually kind of all the tools that are at least on the radar for integration with service observability. So it's really an attempt to kind of validate what's currently on the list. And yeah, if for folks who put other, if you want to put the other tool that you're using in the Q&A with just maybe a little context, like here's another APM tool we're using in the name, that would be a great data point for us as well, because this is a really kind of a new capability within the platform. So the product team is definitely very interested in getting a lot of feedback from customers as to what they like, what they'd like to change, and future capabilities that they would like to see within it.
Well put, Will. Well put. All right. I will let this poll continue to wrap up in case anyone's a little slow getting to it. And we're going to continue on with Aisha's story. So everyone's kind of basically saying, hey, we're on these tools. We're not migrating. These are the tools of our choice. Aisha's just kind of left getting a bunch of, hey, everything looks good on our side, which, a lot of us know that story. And she's wondering, like, how do I do this? How do I make the best of all these worlds, not require huge migration efforts to move away from those tools? Because those tools are great and best of breed in a lot of cases, right? So what do we do? Well, we're going to bring them all in, right? So just a little preview, and I know you folks saw when Will was in his SRM team view, you saw some of these metrics coming in, and you're going to see a little bit more of that here shortly. But bring it all in, bring it all in. This way, Aisha can, when she sees something, something important, some sort of signal comes in, alert, whatever it might be, a compelling event, we'll say. Um, she now has the ability, and if we're bringing in service reliability management, she has the ability on one pane of glass now to look at all these metrics coming in, to just understand at a glance, to help her triage, help her understand what she might need to do next, who she might need to reach out to, or what automation she might want to kick off, or assign an incident or call a bridge. Could be a bunch of different things she's making decisions on, but she knows all that. And she has the service reliability view into this as a team aspect, possibly, but again, still fully available to the monolithic side of the house as well too. So let's not forget about those folks who I certainly deal with on a regular basis as well. So they're all coming in to help her do her job better, quicker. And as you can see here, we're looking, so SLO, right? Error budget. We're bringing that to SRM side of the house. We have all the pieces that are coming in from the observability side of the house, and it just really gives you a great, well-rounded picture in what's going on. And Aisha doesn't, she can, but she doesn't necessarily have to reach out to those teams. She is 100% empowered within the ServiceNow platform. Okay, still allowing those tools to do the best that they do, and she's not begging or forcing the engineers that manage and rely on those tools on a regular basis to force them to come onto the ServiceNow platform. She's the one who's doing this. Okay, so it's just a really great story. There's no requirement or forcing of change of personas and expectations. It's really just giving more tools where needed and exposing that information where it should be exposed best.
Yeah, a big theme that the product team heard for customers was they didn't want to have to actually copy the live data into ServiceNow. Replicating, they've got these different, best of breed tools that they're using to monitor applications. Those tools are recording lots of valuable data, but duplicating that data, sucking it all into the platform was not really seen as a value add activity. And so this is an answer to that, which does live querying when you look at a given service as to how it's doing from the point of view of any of those, best of breed APM observability tools. And it gives the initial respondent to those alerts the ability to kind of check all the boxes before they try and escalate to level 2 or level 3, to minimize the kind of the back and forth thrashing that, they'll say, oh, there's an alert on this. And then the level 2 team will say, well, did you check this? Now that answer can be yes, because it's going to be provided to them in this single kind of holistic view.
Yeah. Well put, Will. Thank you. So just to bring it all together, so everyone sort of understands the different pieces that are going into the service operations workspace if you're using all the tools sort of to totality, so to speak. We've got CI management at the top, right? We know what our service is, hopefully following the CSDM, possibly connected to offerings and business applications and all sorts of other good stuff. We've got our observability signals coming in from those best of breed tools. We've got service reliability providing the error budget. We got incident management, right? Which is kind of incorporating alerts as well, because you can see the alert to incident sort of ratio to understand if maybe you're missing something, or if we're just doing an amazing job and the team has set up the correlation and grouping really well, so that noise reduction is A plus. We've got our AIOps specific stuff and synthetic monitoring on the side there, which we're going to get to in a second, because we're going to plow right through into synthetic monitoring and then pass it back over to Will. Obviously not skipping any. I don't know if there's any poll questions left, but and then we have our service mapping, which is really, service mapping is sort of a tight integration between ITOM and the CI management. Obviously, kind of like discovery, but for service awareness and service visibility. And then we've got our business health kind of up at the kind of higher level up, more of an executive sort of approach there. But all things, including change management. Sorry, I shouldn't leave change out. All things on a single pane of glass. And you used to have to go to 4 or 5 different lists and form views to figure this out. But that's the power. For those who weren't planning on using sort of service operations workspace, that's the power here. We've gone more persona based versus just, this is the list and form view for this specific tool. No, bring it all together so that personas are more efficient and are able to get the job done easier and quicker and free you up to do other value added tasks.
Just in the interest of transparency, and there is some little fine print at the bottom of this slide. This particular visual is directional. It's kind of the vision that the product's working towards. If you go into your instance and install the plugins today, you don't see this exact view yet, but this is just kind of the overall vision that these different components are driving towards.
Yeah, and they'll see that in your because they already probably saw a small glimpse of that in the
Yep.
service view of the. Yeah, okay. Awesome. All right. So adding on to and frankly, as part of observability, some of the tools may already do this, but should they not? Or if you want to bring it in-house and self-serve, because maybe that team's hard to get a hold of, maybe they're just like kind of a small Wild West team that does their own things. But should you want to be able to do synthetic monitoring on platform, we now have that as an offering within this same sort of suite of products. Okay. So it's exactly what it sounds like. I think anyone that's dealt with a synthetic monitor understands what we have released in GA and what we're going to be constantly enhancing. I have no doubt going into the future here. But it's going to simulate a browser. User going and doing an action or going to a page to make sure that that application, that web app, is responding appropriately. It's not throwing out 400s. We're getting a nice pleasant 200 is the response time within the realm that we want it to. And we can be looking at SSO to make sure it's healthy on some sort of API endpoint, or it might be part of one of our other monitoring capabilities. We might be keeping an eye on the server that hosts things, the all the components, right? But ultimately, we could get good signals, healthy signals back from all those. But maybe a user's not having a good experience. Maybe the page load is really long. Maybe some elasticity rules aren't appropriately adding resources. It's really hard to say, but the synthetic monitor gives you that user-based or that user sort of user directional test to see, is it responding the way a user would see it? Because just because everything is showing green doesn't mean that the experience is as it should be, right? And that's that gap that synthetic monitoring fills, and we have it on platform now. So as you can see here, essentially what we're doing is we're allowing you to plug in to sort of the very technically, it's the endpoint table, right? Or a table that references the endpoint table for proper abstraction purposes. But we're looking at URLs. And we're going to take a look at, can we reach it? Are we looking for specific content? How long does it take for the page to respond? And these are very quick to set up, and again goes into into the story that we've been hammering the whole time we've been on this webinar, as far as self-service, quick wizard type setups, working within the service operations workspace, staying within one single pane of glass in that aspect, and being able to get that user persona based experience when it comes to the metrics, instead of just monitoring the pieces that should be serving up those things. So we get a more holistic story for our stakeholders at that point. I think that this, because the next slide I see is roadmap based, so I think I'm going to pause here and I am going to stop my share and I'm going to pass it over to Will to allow him his.
All right. Okay, so this is the second in our series of hands-on demo segments. So I did want to just give a quick shout back to SRM. I realized that I kind of glossed over the creation management of the reliability metrics, which is accomplished via this reliability metrics tab here. And this is where I kind of defined what measured my service level objective. And so clicking into that gives me some graphs and then the details around how I set that up. So in this case, I just set up a simple error rate measurement. And then I established a service level indicator, which basically said, hey, whenever I receive an alert, because that's kind of the basis for SRM, SLI, SLO measurement today, is it just looks at alerts coming in and matching against a specific filter, which in my case are a specific application service and a description, and then it just increments my, or rather, I guess, decrements my availability time based on the elapsed time of that alert. So that's where that's maintained. And once if you've got a service observability and SRM on the same platform, then you just see them all as commingled tabs when you look up your specific service. So the way we onboard a service so it can be measured via service observability is back to that service operations workspace config panel. So it's very similar in function to what I showed you with SRM. It lets you designate administrators for service observability as a whole. And then once those individuals on the platform have that role assigned to them, then they can kind of do the rest of the administrative work around service observability. Again, kind of taking some of the toil off the hands of your platform team at large. So this is the screen by which I could add somebody as a service observability administrator. And then the other two sections are the data sources section. That's where I establish the different connections to my APM tools. So today, service observability integrates directly with Dynatrace, Datadog, and New Relic. And then from a roadmap perspective, there are several new tools being onboarded for the release in August. And so on this page here, you can see the different data sources that I've got configured. And then I'll get rid of this little message here. Just full transparency, that red message, that's a known issue. There's a patch coming out for that imminently. And then, so once I've got my sources set up, I can create a mapping, and a mapping is what basically defines what you're going to query from that specific APM tool connection to tie it back to your application service within the platform. And so just looking at an example of that, I'll look at this one here that I've set up for my Kubernetes-based pet clinic application. And so just to kind of set the stage, I'll go and look at the service on my on the side of my APM tool, which in this case, I'm using New Relic. And so if I look at my services, and it's all managed via tag metadata, which is a construct that public cloud providers, Kubernetes, and these APM and observability tool sets have really kind of embraced as a way to designate attributes against an object that exists within these tools. So it's kind of a very familiar construct that we use in a number of different ways on platform. And so when I look at this service that I've got defined in my APM tool, it'll load. Let's see, that's still loading. You can see I've got a section here called tags. And then if I expand that, it'll show me, whoops, come on. While that's loading, I will just go into my data mapping definition. So basically, this is where I say, okay, this is going to apply to one or more application services. And then down here, I tell it how to construct my query against my APM tool. Hopefully whoever's running synthetics against these tools I'm using is getting some alerts right now, because I'm getting pretty slow response. So here's my definition. I'm saying, here's my APM source. Here's the tag to look at. And I want to look for it to match. In this case, I'm using a variable called the service name. And so on the side of my APM tool, it's going to look for services or other entities that are tagged with service instance matching the service name. APM tool still not cooperating, so I'll just cut right to the chase and show how that manifests within the platform. So I've got an alert against my service. And so here's the form that the alert's taking. And then if I look at the impacted service to bring up the service tab, I'm getting kind of a holistic view where this observability tab is going to be populated with kind of that substantiating data that's been defined to pull from the observability tool. And so, for example, this alert is saying, hey, there's a spike in errors. Here's my error graph right here that as an analyst, I can include when I'm passing this over for escalation to the pertinent team. And then just to kind of put the cherry on top with synthetic monitoring, this is the synthetic monitor screen for maintaining all of those monitoring checks. And I've created a couple of them, which I'm tying back to, as Brandon mentioned, it ties back to the HTTP endpoint CI table. When you're setting one of these up, if the endpoint in question is not related to a service, it lets you establish that relationship right there. We have two options for location of the origin of the synthetic check today. One is for it to come from the customer's protected network by virtue of using our agent client collector running on one or more systems that basically serve as synthetic proxies for those checks, or you can execute the checks from the ServiceNow data center in which your instance resides. Coming soon coming in currently slated for early 2026 is the ability to kind of specify which ServiceNow data centers those checks run from. That is a roadmap item. Today, it's basically just going to run from wherever your instance exists geographically. And then just rounding it out, you can specify what status code or response time or response body content is expected. And then if it doesn't occur for X number of minutes, then it'll create a monitoring alert. And that concludes the second hands-on demo for today.
Cool. Thanks, Will and Brandon. In the case where you're interested in learning more about today's topic, and why wouldn't you be, because we covered a lot, here is a QR code in order for you to be able to connect with our team, and so that we know that we can reach out to you after this webinar to enable you a bit more and talk more about the many amazing capabilities we showcased. And in terms of webinars, so this is the last of AIOps Power Hour for May, June of this year, Q2. We'll probably be back around late Q3 or early Q4 of this year, so keep an eye out. If you're interested in signing up for any of the other webinars that we have, please feel free to sign up via the link that I'll be posting in the chat. And in the case where you're interested in learning more about these capabilities and getting hands-on experience for AIOps, we have some workshops with dates and some with registration pages already for Dallas, which is just next week. And some of the people on the call today will be there, as well as Toronto. Registration is not up for that yet, as well as Atlanta in October. So it's a bit more forward-looking, the ones other than Dallas. Or if you're in Europe as well, we have one coming up in Vienna or Africa as well, Johannesburg. So if you're interested in signing up for any of these, they'll also be available in the registration link I put in the chat. Thank you very much for attending today, and hopefully see you in the next AIOps Power Hours in Q3 or Q4.